So I want to thank Amadeo and Mohammed for making this happen. I had a chat. I actually discovered about this program through Included VC, which is a VC program that I'm part of. And it's a great experience there. But I'm still an operator, as the startups and some of the founders or individuals in this call that are looking to learn. And even my current role, I'm still a product operator. And funny, my work revolves around, I'm a product manager, I'm a senior product manager at Sote. And my day-to-day is actually thinking about and working towards how technology contributes to our revenue. So today, the interesting thing is that I was really thinking about how to really give this talk about product strategy and pricing, because it's a very murky topic. And there's always a lot of content from developed markets like Europe and the US. And I have a feeling I'm talking to a lot of African entrepreneurs. And so what I'll hope to cover with you here is to share with you how I look at product strategy from my decade of experience and pricing, especially for this region that we are in called Africa or any other emerging market. What you will get to see is a series of more of foundational things and the thinking behind it. And I'm not going to be prescribing. So if you're looking for like a one back solution, that's sorry, this is I'm just giving you a warning. But what I will give you is a way to actually think about strategy and pricing, and then you can add any more information and other templates or frameworks that you want to work. This is very fundamental. So I'm just gonna focus on three key things. We're just gonna debunk product and just like look at it from a bit of how I look at it from my lens. And then we're gonna go into what it takes to actually build a product. And then lastly, we'll finish with pricing. I think Amadeo did a great job about telling you who I am. And I have shared, just my knowledge. I'm an entrepreneur just like you guys. I've founded a startup. I've been a co-founder. I've been a CEO. And I've worked as a product and also a CTO. I've worked as a product leader and also a technology leader in several startups. So I've seen what it is to be an employee, what it is to fundraise, what it is. And right now I'm in the process of jumping the other side where I will be actually investing in companies. And I'm actually an emerging fund manager right now. So I'm playing in all the desks, so I'm able to see how things turn out on different sides of the table. So let's see how I can share some of the knowledge I'm getting from the other side of venture capital and business fundamentals, and also what I've been doing in sort of getting to that sweet spot, which is an entrepreneurship and building a great company. So let's start with the banking product. Oh, and by the way, once I will be stopping at each section and giving people a chance to ask questions. I'm going to cap it to one or two. Keep it them short if it's pressing, and then we'll save some time towards the end. So let's do that. Or actually, what is best, we can go through the deck, and then once we brush through, we're going to have some time for Q&A and try to have it more interactive. So whichever works, you can just say that, type it in, and that. So the whole idea is to make it as interactive. Okay, so let's start with the banking product. So I found Adam Nash's piece of writing somewhere in the internet. And I think I remember I was reading this and it was quite interesting to me. And the way he thinks about product, he says it boils down to two main areas. What game are we playing and how do we keep score? So anytime you're a product manager or a CEO or a founder, all founders most of the time play the product manager role in the beginning of their company before they hire someone to really specifically know this. And at that end of the day, even there's a lot of focus even from investors and other stakeholders, like, okay, what problem are you trying to solve? What's the market? What is looking like? So at that point, you're like, you're trying to understand, what game am I playing? Am I B2B? Am I B2C? Those are like the type of things that come into mind. Second thing is, how do we keep score? So how do we know that, okay, once you've known the game, how do you know that you're actually scoring and actually you're progressing? And in this case, you're like, okay, I'm sure some of you in this call have something called traction in their deck and milestones and that's what the investors will be using to measure you and say, oh, he's making progress or they're making progress, this type of traction. So that's how people assess. So two things, we're looking at what game are we playing in the first place and how do we keep score, just like soccer, basketball, athletics, and all that. Think about it that way. So I have my set of principles. This have been, I prepared this deck several days ago, and I was really thinking about it. And I said, these are the things that really matter to me. Like, there's so much text about product and the principles and what product is and what it's not. But for me as Ken, whenever I'm seated down and I'm thinking about a product, it boils down to six things. The first one is problem. And a lot of time you hear this thing about problem, and that's how you see number one. Like, one question I'm sure all founders, what problem are you solving? That's the number one question all founders are being asked. But, we'll talk about that. But like, for the first thing that I look at is the problem that we're trying to solve. The second thing I ask myself, who is the customer or who are the stakeholders that I'm solving this problem for? For number two, which is customer, a lot of time people have one persona or they tend to think about one specific person. But when you look at majority of the products that you've interacted with, a lot of the times it deals with so many people, but most of the time there's always going to be one person that actually is the one that's going to pay the product, not several people. It's going to be one person that's going to pay, or a company or something, or someone's going to initiate a trigger. But the product itself, it can end up touching so many other stakeholders and all those people you want to know. So customer has this big bucket, but then you want to know, like, who is it? Who are you solving it for? And who is also that person that's going to pay you money? Now, having a problem and a customer is great. And a lot of startups do that well, where they're able, I'm doing this problem and customer. Where a lot of people fail, or what makes a lot of, especially the venture-backed, if you're going venture-backed, the venture-backed route, where you're going for VC capital, where most people fail is actually to really map out how many people relate to this and where are they? Like, what's the size of the market? And that question is a bit vague. It's so hard to size the market and know how many, but the big question here is normal that most founders, entrepreneurs, product managers do, is that you find a problem that relates to Ken. Oh, I go to like the store every day and I find like, oh, I spend so much time. Let me get a bike, and then, or let me get a taxi. And so now I start thinking, oh, how many? And then I say, that's a problem that I can solve. I'm the customer and I'm the problem. But then what you don't ask yourself is that, okay, you can do this and actually buy a car and put it out there. But okay, how many people relate to this type of problem and can actually implement? So, that's a big question, right? And so you want to ask yourself, okay, what is the size of people that relate to this specific problem and context that you've already mapped up in number one and two? The fourth part that is very interesting is normally, what is the existing solution or existing thing that these customers do to address this problem? And an interesting thing here is, what is the alternative that they use? So for instance, I'm moving from my house to the gym. I can either walk, I can either get an Uber, I can either call a taxi, I can either drive my car, I can either pool with my friend. There's so many ways I can get there. But then you want to know, like, okay, if I get a lift, maybe my friend, I don't pay for anything, he just lifts me. If I use a taxi, it costs me like, let's say 1,000 Kenya shillings, or maybe let's call it $10. If I walk, it's zero cost. but then I'll get there when I'm sweaty, but I've also exercised. There's all these different alternatives, but you want to know, like, what is the solution that people are using, and how are they mitigating it, and what are they doing? The fifth one is solutions. So whatever you're going to offer them, right, when you're thinking about your solution, leave alone tech, leave alone, and a lot of people like want to go to tech, I'm going to build an app, and I see people jump into this, but you have to ask yourself fundamentally, is the solution that I'm offering 10x better than the existing solution? And what does 10x better mean? One, it could mean I'm amplifying discoverability. It could mean, number two, it could mean something like, oh, it's going to be as cost effective and sustainable for you. Number three, it could be, I'm going to improve your experience. Number three, I'm going to lower your cost. So it's like, for instance, Uber, what did Uber do for us? Uber amplified discoverability and introduced the concept where, you know what, all I need is to have my phone and an app and just connected to the internet. And as long as I'm in any place, I can go and hail a cab and it will come. And I don't have to have someone waiting for me and rent a car the whole day. So any Uber that's available near me, I can hail it. So you're looking at like that solution was 10x better in terms of discoverability and how effective it was also in terms of cost to the customer. I can tell you for sure, I as Ken would have never used a taxi in my life until Uber came, and it's one of the reasons I've not bought a car, right? So Uber has made, like, if I was gonna go and buy a car, it's delayed, and now instead of buying a car, now I'm using Uber, right? And many other people have preferred to use this because that's a way of life for them, because it's like you have your car, but you don't have to own the asset. That's the thing, with this, and you don't have to have any maintenance, and it's on demand. So it's just about asking yourself, this solution that I'm offering, is it 10x better than what's existing out there? And then now the bigger question becomes, what makes it 10x better? Is it technology? And what role does technology play a part? And here you can talk about the user experience and all that. Now, the last question, or the last, principle is the revenue potential. So in this place, I normally ask myself, okay, I have this problem, I have customer, I might have so many people, but who in the value chain is willing to spend the most amount of money? A good example, there's a statement that goes around, I'm trying to remember who said it, but it goes along these lines of, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And in this case, if you look at something like Facebook, we don't pay to use Facebook. We don't pay to use Instagram. But there is a lot of people who will want to access that consumer base that is loyal to Instagram. Who are those? The advertisers or small businesses. Let's not even call them advertisers. Let's call them small businesses that want to advertise themselves to you. So you are there. And so for Facebook or a Google, or a Twitter, or many of these people, they are key people that in the value chain that need this consumer base is actually small businesses. And small businesses need to actually be discovered. They want their products to be discovered. They want to be known. They want to build their brand, and they want to do this. And where can they build it? Oh, on Facebook. And what do they need to do to promote? Oh, you need to promote your post so that many people can see it. And in this sense, when you look at it, Facebook's core customer is small businesses and advertisers that are trying to advertise. Those are like the core people. But for that core customer to get value, they need to focus on this other stakeholder who is me, who don't pay the product, to stay on Facebook and keep using the product. So you have to also ask yourself, okay, who in my value chain or who in my ecosystem is the one that needs this? And that's why you see models such as Facebook getting venture backed. And for 4 years, they don't actually they don't have pressure from their backers to actually produce like revenue from day one, because they are on a different thesis or a different strategy. So you have to ask yourself, okay, what's the end goal? who is going to be the key customer. So if we do this and we validated that advertisers do need this at such specific point, then this is the way. And if you look at it back in the day, like in 2004, when the Facebooks and social media were coming up, the advertising model had always been there. Now, the key thing with this is that Facebook was a 10x better product for people, right, to connect. And then all of a sudden, we had all these billions of people using this product. And what they've also continued to do is that when Facebook became big, they've also been acquiring other hitters. So they made a purchase on Instagram, they made a purchase on WhatsApp. So Facebook has this big ecosystem where they're only enriching their ecosystem and reach, such that if I put a Facebook ad and I can target which platform that I want, I'm guaranteed that someone will get there. So the value that they're increasing, on the for the advertisers is massive, and advertisers or companies or small businesses will keep spending more money on ads. So it's about thinking about those things. Now, I don't know if there's any question. I'm gonna take one question from the audience on anyone that wants to just like ask here. If not, I'm just gonna proceed to the next one, to the next phase. Anyone? Okay.
Maybe you can just keep them for the end.
Okay. So the first part was debunking product, and this is how I do go about product. The second part is what goes into building a product. And a lot of you who are entrepreneurs, whether your product is digital or non-digital, it's definitely a product, right? So I know the product world tends to, whenever people think about products and they think about tech and digital, but at the end of the day, whether it's a newspaper, whether it's a consumable good, whether it's like toothpaste, it is still a product, and the basic fundamentals of developing it are consistent. Only that with product management and digital and all this, there's in venture capital and technology, there's a big inclination. But always keep in mind that, look at product from this macro perspective of anything that I'm offering in exchange of this, a good or a commodity can be considered as a product. And the basic construct of building them is the same, only that what changes is the format at which we actually distribute the goods. So for digital goods, we use technology and the web to distribute them. But for non-retail and the likes, we use different value chains such as like wholesalers, retailers, and that's how you pass. So there's a digital, non-digital type of world, but the product principles are still the same. So let's go and look at how we go about it. Now, the talk here was more about your product strategy, right? And there's this image, and I forgot to get the credits for this person, but there's a nice article and there's a GIF, and I'll try to play the GIF. And the thing about this GIF, let me start it. The thing about this GIF is, at the end of the day, what normally happens is that when you think about your product strategy and developing it, you always start with a vision, right? And people say, I want to build something that's going to impact the world or do this type of change. And that's the vision that we normally paint of where we want to go. The second part is we say, now we know what we want, but what is actually like the challenge that we need to overcome so that we achieve this vision? And that's now normally the challenge. So I'll give you an example. I'll use a past company that I've been part of to sort of paint this. So we can say, I'll use my first startup that I was part of. Our vision was we would like Sub-Saharan Africa and other emerging markets, or very specific, to be part of the digital commerce evolution. This was 10 years ago. The challenge was for them to do that, they needed to come online. So there were a couple of challenges. Number one, there was no payment infrastructure that connected seamlessly cash and mobile money to the online world. And the solution that was there, which was debit cards and credit cards, right, was available, but the public perception, even for those that had it, was negative. When they thought about putting the card online, they thought about fraud. My money in the bank is going to be stolen. So what happened, there was this barrier of people going and participating in the digital world, which we had envisioned that we wanted them to participate in, which is the e-commerce. This is the time of Jumia and the likes. So when Jumia was coming, where they are trying to achieve this vision of e-commerce in Africa, the key challenge that they faced were two. One, how do you actually get people to pay for products in that digital experience? And then number two, how do you actually deliver these products to these people where they are? And if you remember some of the challenges that came about, which I'll go and talk about, which is the current state. So let's zoom to 10 years ago. So what's the current state? Where is Jumia 10 years ago? Where is WeCashApp 10 years ago, the company that I founded? Where we are is we have a big consumer base where 80%, 85% of people are unbanked. And the 15% that is banked, that either have a debit card or a form of credit card, have a perception that if they put their cards online, their money is gonna be zapped, because that's actually true. There's a lot of fraud online. Number two, what's the current state 10 years ago? Thinking about digital and e-commerce, okay, we have not figured out addressing. So in Africa and most African cities, maybe Nigeria or South Africa has a better addressing system, but from where I'm from in Nairobi or in Kenya, it's just roads and landmarks. So our addressing is just off the chart. So you don't know where you're supposed to go. So, and then what else? What's the behavior of people? So people are cash-based, not cash and debit-based. So percentage of the volume is in cash and mobile money. Now, if you're in Kenya, if you're talking about Kenya 10 years ago, M-Pesa is your way of life, cash is your way of life, and a bit of swiping here and there is your way of life. But you have to see the product. So that's where you are. Now, the challenge is, how do we get you to that vision of, okay, this big 100% share, can we get at least 70% of people participating in digital commerce, right? And so the challenge is like, how do we get them there? Number one, we need an e-commerce platform. Okay, Jumia is starting to work on that. Okay, number two, okay, we have the e-commerce part done. We will need to think about payments, and not payments to replicate what has happened there. We need to get what people are used to and map it to the digital world. So that's mobile money, M-Pesa integration, and that. What else needs to happen? Oh, we need to think about logistics or third-party logistics in a way. Now, if you look at the product strategy and that vision, the vision for a majority of startups that have been quite successful right now that I can name, had the same vision of facilitating Africa to be part of the digital commerce. Now, I'll talk about the ones that I know in Kenya that have touched on those three challenges. Number one, there's Jumia and Sky Garden that have offered a platform where customers can be able to go and find the products that they want. And also they've offered a platform where merchants who are in the physical world can put their products online and deliver to anyone in the country. That's the first level. The second one is payments. What has happened? We had M-Pesa, but then we had startups like Flutterwave and what else in Kenya? Cellulant. What else in Kenya has done? JumboPay, Pesapal, that have thought about, okay, we have M-Pesa, we have cards, we have all this. Okay, people need to be paid, people need to pay. So, okay, how do we create a system or a platform that allows all these e-commerce companies to be able to receive money and push it out. The last one is logistics. Okay, so people want to sell food, people want to sell products from their e-commerce. They need to be delivered to their houses. So how do we do it? Oh, there's a company called Sendy that focuses on this, right? Third-party logistics. So when you're thinking about product strategies, like, okay, where's the current state, right? But most importantly is like the vision never changes, and the vision can be shared. The vision can be shared by so many startups, so many companies. You know, the vision here was like, how does Africa participate in the digital economy? That was the vision for so many people 10 years ago. And people are still working towards that, but there are challenges that are being addressed. But those challenges are a reflection of where we are now versus that. So when you're thinking about your product strategy, you want to say, what is the vision that I'm going towards, right? And once that is very clear, you now start asking yourself, okay, to get to that vision, where am I right now? And once you know where you are right now, okay, so what are the challenges that I have to overcome to that? And so those challenges are what build the thesis of or the core of your product strategy, and that's what you focus on. And so you can say, hey, look, when we were starting, this is where we were, and with our innovation, this is how we are contributing to getting to this vision, and that's actually what shows the progress and the customers, and you get people. So that's the high level thinking of product strategy. So now it's easier said than done, right? Challenge and vision are normally clear, but the current state is so fuzzy. So it's not like you're going to pull up Google and then write, oh, so where is the payments rails? Where is Nigeria? Where is this? Where is that? Like, you have to find a way to actually like figure this out. And so that's where now the product strategy comes in play. So you have this current state, and you have to keep going deeper and experimenting to validate and understand, where am I? And how do I get to the vision, and what's the challenge? Because for you to know the challenge, you have to understand the current state. So you start with the vision, then you go to the current state, and then the current state helps you map the appropriate challenge that you need to be focusing on. And so it goes, and what you normally have is this. You have this, the yellow part is the threshold of knowledge. So like this stuff, okay, we're in Kenya, we use M-Pesa, we do this. But what you don't know is like, okay, how many people have a mobile phone? How many people do this? How many people do that? How many people that have a mobile phone are likely to have access to a digital phone or a computer where they can make an online purchase on Jumia? That's a very different question. But you can know how many people have a mobile phone, how many people have M-Pesa. So or how many people have access to that but are willing to versus not willing to. And those that are not willing to, what is actually hindering them from not participating? So there's all these things that you're trying to map. And so what typically happens is that now you start mapping what we call targets. So, and you don't make those targets moving targets, you make them a consistent target. So you're like, okay, this is the challenge, but then we're going to focus on this target, and that's the first thing that we're going to address. And then you go for it. And then after as you're going for it, you keep learning more stuff, and that also keeps pushing you towards your vision. I'll give an example of a company like Sendy. So Sendy had this thesis, right? That, okay, we have all these small motorbikes, and people need to send documents from one place to another, right? So, and how do we make a system where we don't have to buy all these motorbikes or pickups or trucks and put them on our platform? Oh, by the way, actually in the current state, if you look at it, people do have their motorbikes, but their motorbikes are underutilized. So can we give them a solution where they can give us the pool of their trucks, and then we can give them jobs? Now, they did that. That was great. They solved that first target with the platform and this. But then the challenge came, you're not getting regular number of jobs, right? And the other thing is that those jobs are not now viable. So what you'll have is that you'll have someone who wants to send a small package, let's say my phone, I left my charger on my phone, and I want to send it from Nairobi to, okay, let me say a specific part of Nairobi. Let's say Nairobi to, I'll say an example, Nairobi to Lagos. I'm just going to give that abstract example, Nairobi to Lagos. But then the cost of going from Nairobi to Lagos, let's say with this motorbike, is basically more than even the cost of the item being taken, right? And so what happened is that as they were solving this challenge of getting jobs, they ended up learning that, oh, you know what? Apart from just these small B2C movements that we are seeing of messengers and consumers, do you know that actually businesses have a challenge of moving goods from one city to another and all that? And so they changed their model and they focused on B2B. And so they started getting some of these corporates, and now the trucks that were leased or were on this platform were starting to get very regular jobs that were cost effective. And so you see, you're solving a problem here, but it didn't come up as straightforward. As you're working towards it, which you will see, this unclear territory, the gray area that you're seeing on this diagram is like, you don't know what you don't know. So you don't know like, oh, okay, I want to focus on this target. It's very clear. You're going and then you start seeing other dependencies and other things moving. So those conditions keep changing. And now for Sandy, they're like, for us to get regular jobs, to have steady revenue and a cost effective for our trackers or the people in our platform, we need to find the right model for us first. We're not gonna discontinue the B2C, but we have to change and look other places and diversify, and that's what they did. So as you keep going, you see you're starting to see the dots connecting to each other. And what happens is that as you're going towards your target condition, it's more about a process of experimenting through unclear territory until you reach the target condition. So there's a lot of trial and error in product, by the way. So don't be afraid of that. So you're going to try this and then try that, and this doesn't work. This works. But again, you're very clear on where you're going, right? So you don't want to do trial and error where you don't even know where you're going, but you want to do trial and error on trying to validate this and work towards this, because at the end of the day, you're going to meet obstacles. And so that's now the process of your strategy. So the current state keeps getting updated and you continue experiment towards the next target condition. And that keeps building until you now get to this current state, challenge, and vision. So that's simply the framework that we use. So I know there's all that, and you're going to get this recording, you're going to get the slides. I'm going to share them. There's non-NDA things here. So very general stuff. But when you're thinking about product strategy, in my vision, I look at them from four things. I look at the vision, which is what we talked about, which is basically like, what do we want to achieve? And in this case, you can use the example of 10 years ago, majority of Africa was thinking, how do we get to the digital, like how does Africa participate in the digital economy and join the rest of the world? And then two, what are the challenges that are hindering us to get there, right? And then so the startups basically were really focusing on number 3 and 4, which is basically, okay, basically what's the current state and then what's the target condition? So what are the things that we need to do to address the challenges that are here? And the person that offers the best challenge is going to be the winner. And that's what we've seen, right? And so it's about thinking about that. So when you're doing your strategy, you want to think really like, okay, where's the vision? What's the big vision? What's the 10-year, 20-year vision? It's not going to change. Even right now, today, I think I received news that we have a new unicorn with Chipper Cash. And I think 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, we had another unicorn with Flutterwave. Took Flutterwave 5 years to get there. Took Chipper Cash 3 years to get there. I don't think it's even more about the unicorn. It's more about the unicorn status about that. It's just about what's the value that they're actually doing to the continent. And if you go and look at their decks or you look at what they're trying to do, it's still the same vision. It's not changed 10 years ago. How does Africa participate in the digital economy? So that's not going to change. So try and really focus on having that meta, like your vision doesn't change really consistently. What keeps changing is going to be the challenges and the target conditions. So, and that's what's going to model your product strategy. So I think there's a key thing here. And, when you think about them, those that, with product, one of the things about product with the art and science of products, like looking at how these things connect each other. So the way I try to look at them is I start with scoping the known and versus the unknown. And basically trying to understand where I am, which is what we're talking about, current state. And then what I'll do with the target condition, instead of saying target condition, I'll put up, this is my theory or hypothesis. So my theory is, if I'm able to lower the cost of, number one, if I'm able to build a solution, if I'm able to put up a solution that mirrors the existing pattern behavior of the customer's spending power, what they're used to, and that solution is close to the digital economy, there's a high likelihood that the people that are there, they're going to participate. So if the customer segment is used to cash and M-Pesa and digital agents and all that, so how can I build something that merges these two together, right? And so that's what you're trying to think about. And then so once I have that theory, I'll now go and set out to validate my theory or hypothesis through a series of experiments. And guess what? This theory is what I'll go and and share with partners and investors and say, look, this is my theory, and this is what I need funds, and this is the cost of me validating my theory. So I need you to fund me X for this specific amount to actually pursue this theory. And this is why I'm best suited to work on this theory. This is and I need this specific amount. And now if you give me this amount and I give you this percentage share and I get these partners and I have this team, in 18 months, I'll be able to come back to you and show you how this theory is true. And this is evidence why this theory should be pursued now. And now you're starting to see how it's connected, right? But again, it's still product strategy. It's still in the thinking, whether it's a digital product or a non-digital product. Now, what people miss is that the key mistake I see a lot of us doing now that I'm in the VC world is that for the venture capital or VC-backed companies, venture capital is not the only form of financing available for businesses. There's so many, there's debt and all this. And there's impact, there's grants, there's so many things that you can do. But for specifically, if you're thinking about venture capitalists, especially institutional ones, not the angels, not the friends, family, and fools. But if you're going for institutional money, the Patex of this world, the type of VC firms that are out there, they are looking for what they are driven by what we call the power law. And what the power law states is, I want to get to know the theory or the company or the idea or the product that is going to be in 10 years generating $100 million worth of revenue. Because then that will mean that their valuation will go up to the point that either they are acquired or they exit. And that will mean that for their investors, that investment can be able to return the type of returns to the fund, and the fund will be able to dispense the returns now to the investors of that fund. So if your business, and you have to look at a 10-year, 15-year strategy and say it cannot go to $100 million of revenue, then probably venture is not the place to actually go and raise your money from. There's other forms of trying to raise your money from, there's debt and all that. So I don't want to go too much deeper here, but I want to show you how this theory hypothesis is so important and how it actually goes into the thesis, into the core of your business and your strategy overall as a company. And so if this product in this market cannot get to that, and then you shouldn't go for venture money. You can go for another alternative type of money, and there's many there, but this is not the avenue to talk about venture capital. Let's talk about product strategy and how it's connected. And the last thing is that as you keep pursuing this experimentation process, what you do is that you add to your knowledge base. And one thing, I think it's Y Combinator. I've ever applied to Y Combinator. And this is one interesting question they ask you. I don't know if these, they ask you like, what's the one thing that you know that others, what's the one insight or something like that? It goes along the lines of, what's the one thing that you know that other people on the world don't know about this problem? And so as you're keeping on doing this hypothesis and theory, basically you're able to uncover some things that are those insights that are unique to you that you know that other people might not know because they're not looking at the theory in your perspective. And so what you find is that investors actually more so invest in your theory or hypothesis and your likability or likelihood to achieve it, and not basically the traction itself. The traction is just evidence that, okay, this theory is going to get us there, right? And I'm going to try and pick up the pace. But that's how it's connected. So let's see this a bit in action. So I'm just going to show you just a small thing that I prepared. Wait a minute. Okay. So I did create a small mind map. So I started this new job about 3 months ago, and I was working on revenue initiatives, and I wanted to show you like how I sort of view things. Kindly let me know if you can see my screen. You should be able to see like a sort of mind map. And so the way I normally start my process, which is something that's quite easy, is that I start with saying, what are the outcomes that I desire? So in this case, I don't have like a very fresh example, but because of time, this process was supposed to be very interactive. But what I'll go through is like the way I model it. So I start with asking myself, what outcome do I want in a 6 months, 3 months outcome? But this is basically more so when I'm very clear on the vision that I want. And I also have a bit of an idea of where I am. And so I say, okay, in 6 months, let's say I can say in 6 months, let's say I'm starting a new startup. I would like to have identified a product that I can sell to small businesses. That's just an example, right? And you're like very clear, I want to know this, right? And so if you see that's the outcome, then now I'm like, okay, in 3 months, where do I want to be? So I'm like, okay, if I want to have identified a product in 3 months, I should have at least 3 ideas that I can explore, right? And which 3 ideas, I can say I should have at least 3 ideas that that would guide me making a decision on one. So basically what I'm saying here is in 3 months, I want to have three things that I've defined that could potentially be products that I can sell. But in 6 months, I want to know which one it is, right? And so in the first 3 months, then what I'll focus on is, okay, understanding the following. I want to understand, okay, for me, I have this small framework, which I already talked about: customer, opportunity, solution, revenue. I've just mixed them up. But in customer, I like to think about this, okay, what are the segments I'm going for? What are the problems and challenges? And then under problem and challenges, I take it through the vitamin painkiller test. What does that mean? What that means basically is that for every problem, most of the time, when you look at even the pharmaceuticals and drugs, a lot of the times you tell people, oh, prevention is better than cure. You sell all these vitamins, but they never sell. Like, people don't go for vitamins at all. No one buys supplements and all that. But when they have a headache, Number one at the OTC drug. Oh, can I get a paracetamol? Because this headache cannot go. I need something, Or if you have a bad, nasty flu, what do? Back to the pharmacy and you buy this. But someone could have told you, hey, do you know you can be constantly deworming? If I asked people here, when was the last time you actually went and took dewormed? I know last year I have not dewormed like maybe in 6 months. I've forgotten because I've not had any attack. I've not had any reason. But what do the doctors say? I need to be dewormed every 3 months, right? Or the dentist say, oh, you should be coming for an annual checkup. But you never go for the checkup. But when that tooth disturbs you, my brother or my sister, you will be at the dentist. And if they tell you, for this extraction, you have a problem here, you're going to spend $1,000, you'll be like, okay, I don't know where the money is going to come from, but we need to deal with this pain because I cannot live with it. And trust me, dental is very expensive. I know that for sure. And so the thing here is like to think about it. Okay, what are those problems that even if the customer doesn't have money, they will go and borrow money to actually deal with that. And that's where you want to be, right? And then you go and say, what is the customer doing today to address the pain or the challenge? So a good example of also vitamin painkiller test is it's like looking at something like what is the one thing that people have? Let's say a car. If you buy a car, right, and you're driving it, and then it breaks down, because you have a car and it's a status symbol, at least in this part of the world of Africa, and I'm talking about Kenya, a car is like a status symbol. So if people see you pulling out without a car, they'll be like, yo, dude, you can't be like driving, And so what you'll do, you even go and borrow money to fix your car so that you save your face, right? So that's the type of thing I'm talking about. So like you want to tap into the problems or challenges that customers really face, where they will do whatever it takes to actually fund so that, that thing is there. And that's when man, I've hit it. I have the sweet spot. And then what you want to ask yourself about the customer is like, what are they doing today to address this problem or challenge? Are they borrowing money? Where are they borrowing from? Or, okay, when this happens, what do they go? Do they go to a clinic? Do they go here and that? It's different type of stuff. And then ask yourself, is the customer spending any money on a current solution right now? And how much are they paying for? Once you know that, that's a very, very key thing. And I like to know that. That's like one of my sweet spots. I like knowing what's the customer spending on right now, and why are they paying, right? And can my solution be maybe more affordable, and what's the perceived value? Can I actually give more value? And what's their behavior? I want to really know about my customer. The second thing I normally define now is the opportunity. So I like saying, okay, I've known the problem, I've known the customer. So what's the opportunity here? What's the gap? What's the gap that I've identified? What's the size of the opportunity? And then the size of the opportunity here I'm talking about is like how many number of customers are in this situation? And then I say, what's the market dynamic? Are they price sensitive? Are they this? What do they use? Like you can bring this product, it's a great product for them, but they don't want it. Why? I want to know that dynamic, right? Then I go to solution and I start with solution without technology. So can you sell fundamentally to this customer without technology? Like you can have an interface and then you have a backend like spreadsheet. Can you send to them? And that's when damn, I have it. Like I can even sell without technology. There's something here. And then now I go, okay, what's the solution with technology and product? That means with technology and product, it's going to be a 10x better product. It's going to be better in terms of, it's going to be better than what's out there, right? Because the solution without tech is probably what other people are doing, right? Then what's the evidence of value created? So if I give them my solution, are they giving value? Are they saying, oh, I love this? Are they referring people? Are they recommending you? And then the other thing is, what's the magnitude of value to the customer? Is it like, oh, you're just making them save $5? You're doing all this, you spend like it's like you want to go from, you're bringing a supercar to like a place that's a gravel place. Like if you bring a Lamborghini or like a Formula One car as your commute for 5 minutes, is that really viable? To be honest, no. Or it's like bringing like the wrong solution, which works. It's a really fast car. It's a very expensive car, but just to move from here to there, you could even walk for 5 minutes for, So you want to know like what's the value to the customer. And then the other one is revenue. So you want to know, okay, what's the revenue potential? Are they spending? What's their behavior? What's this? And then you want to know, okay, what are the different models that can work for me, right? And in this case, I'm looking, okay, is it B2B? Is it B2C? Okay, who's actually the person paying? Why are they paying? Where's the money? So I'm following the money. I'm trying to understand that. And then normally I'd like to tie whatever I'm doing to the mission of the company. So in this case, this is not supposed to be there, but in my company, I wanted to tie it to my mission. So I'm working on revenue initiatives for the company I work for at SOTI in logistics. And the things I'm working on, it's quite clear for me. The mission for us is basically how do we have a theory, and the theory is if we're able to bring efficiency into logistics, we will be able, in the continent, we will be able to open up Africa to majority of the world. And we see that, and that's what we're doing. So the other parts here was on the slide. So this is more of the solution. So I do my brainstorming here. So one part I normally do is play around with the approach. So how am I approaching this? This is a very important thing. If you're hiring a product manager here, I know we have entrepreneurs in this call. If you're hiring a product manager, you want to know, okay, what's their approach? How are they going about it? So you might not be a product person, but you want to know, okay, tell me your approach. So, okay, you're telling me this big dream, what's your approach? And this is a key component of how you assess. You're assessing like, is this person competent? Are they going to deliver? Or you're just going to have stories. So one of the things that people fail or founders fail is like, oh, I've been a product manager, but at the interview process, as you're giving your offer, you want to know what's the approach that they're going to use to get there. And the approach could be called the plan. But the plan is not like a Gantt chart and all this. It's like, what's the mindset? I'm going to experiment. I'm going to do this. I'm going to set these goals. I'm going to have this, right? And then initiatives for me was basically the number of ideas that I have. So in my current role, it's like I'm doing three. I'm actually in your situation. I'm like an entrepreneur within a startup. And I'm actually validating 3 ways that I can actually like make money for the company. And in 6 months, I've been given 6 months runway. The only head count is me. And I need to figure that out. But then the resources is like using the other people in the company to sort of know, okay, build the knowledge gap that I have. And I've been given the challenge. We know you can do it. You've done it in the past for many startups, for your startups and that, but can you do this in 6 months for us and in this company? And you've never done in logistics. So that's been the challenge for me, right? So that's what I'm working on, right? And so, yeah, so that's basically how you look at it. So I'm gonna go into luckily for you, the pricing is so connected to what I've already talked about. So I'm sorry, I think I reshared the same slide. I know this is a handful, sorry about that, but
no worries. Kenneth, I don't mean to interrupt, but looking at the time, we have some minutes left. And if you are available a little bit more, then I would say we jump and tap into pricing. And then if you have some extra time, then we would push the Q&A to the extra time for everyone who has not to leave sharp.
Yes. Oh, okay, great. I thought I had the wrong.
Thank you, Kenneth.
I will for these beautiful people in the call, I will add some more time for them.
Amazing, thank you.
So, okay, so here is where we were, and we saw something in action. Okay, so we want to talk about pricing, and I only have 2 slides for pricing, and it's very simple, right? So pricing is one of the most controversial things in any startup or company or this. I'm sure Amadeo and Mohammed know about this. Like, okay, you're dealing with a partner. How do you price this? But it's more about really these 4 things. These are my building blocks, right? I normally want to start with understanding who's my target customer, which we've already talked about. The second thing I want to go to is what's the purchase power of the target customer and their willingness to spend on the solution. Product pricing is more of an art of mixing sales. So there's a bit of sales-ish understanding. And this is how if you're hiring for a salesperson or a commercial person or business development, if they are not talking in this type of mindset, very simple, they're like, what's the purchase power and this stuff, you're hiring the wrong person. So pay attention to this slide. The number 3 thing is like, what's the current pricing model that the target customer is already accustomed to? And so with pricing, it's one of the places we talk a lot about experimentation in product, but for product pricing, we don't experiment too much with product. That could be a maker dealer breaker with your customer. Like you can alter the product. If you miss, man, you can even get 70% churn from all your customers, and we've seen that. But again, you can get it right and you acquire new customers. So it's something to think about. The 4th thing is the gross margin assessment. And I want to say gross margin, not revenue. When I say gross margin, I mean like when you've done your revenue, like let's say a lot of people like using, and I see a lot of startups and founders using this. Please do not do this to yourself. You can say, yes, I'm passing X number of GMV if you're in e-commerce, gross merchandise value, or I'm processing $1 million of transactions. But don't just say, oh, and be happy. That's what we call vanity metrics. Can you tell me how much in that $1 million that you process that you put as you? And most of the time you find that they have like 0.something%. So someone is like here talking about how they processed $1 million, but they only went with $1,000, and you're asking for $500,000 to just produce that. Those economics don't make sense. So your model needs to be refined, right? So always what you want to pay attention to when you're looking at product pricing is the margin. The margin is very important. So on a rule of thumb, a 10% margin is considered good. 10% is considered average, 20% or high is actually considered high or good, which is a great thing. But anything below 10% is in the red zone and should be assessed. It doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It means that it should be assessed, and you should find what type of pricing model works for you, or what type of service or product you need to layer on top. So these are sort of the building blocks that I use for pricing. But through my lens, this is how I look at it. I want to walk you through the way I think about it. It's 4 steps. The first one, I begin with assessing the cost of delivering the goods. So for startup founders here, if you've never seen a financial model, or if just go and get like someone who's really good with financial modeling. It doesn't have to be like a CFO type person. Any person that has ever drawn a P&L statement and all that, you can just, even your accountant, you can go and ask him, can you help me assess cost of goods and cost of doing this? You can, it's a day exercise. You sit down with them and you start assessing like cost of delivering the goods or the service. The second thing I do is I then assess what the overall spend what's the overall spend that customers spend on solutions, right? Or products. So it either could be alternative technologies or products. How much are they spending, right? What's their spending power? I want to know that. The third thing is I want to validate with a small scale group different pricing models. So remember, I told you, customers are very price sensitive, and especially about cost, especially in this part of Africa, a big part of the world, which is Africa or any emerging markets, customers are price sensitive. So you don't want, even if they have money, they want like the lowest margin or the lowest cut. So, you don't want to play around. So you want to be very, very precise on how you validate this, and you can test out different things. You can call them partners, you can call them this, but you want to get the right customer to work with on this. The fourth thing is you set the price, you stick to it, and at the end of the day, if you are aware of your margins and all that, you just stick to it and you keep working. Now, the thing to note here is that models are very different. So, and I don't want to go, this is not the place to go into price. That's a whole different type of product topic. There are many different types of models. Like for instance, fast mover consumer goods, or what they call consumer packaged goods, those type of products, they are low margin, but then it's more about volume. So it's about the number of transactions. Others are niche. So it can be like one product, but the margin is quite big, but then you're not moving that product as fast as possible, right? So you always want to think about where am I playing at? What is the model that works for me? And how am I working with that? So, and what you want to know is like, where's my business in this perspective? If it's B2B, is it B2C? Is it a platform? Is it that? I know those are like jargons, but at the end of the day, it's just really thinking about what is the model that really works for me in my business, right? And when you set the price, you stick to it. You build a loyalty, and then now you can revise it at discounts. For those who live in like Kenya, I think there was a restaurant, burger. Okay, not even that. Anytime our price, let me use a very interesting example. Anytime the cost of the dollar goes up, in Kenya, the cost of fuel goes up. We know what's going to happen. If the cost of fuel goes up per liter, we know that for some reason, I don't know why, milk is going to go up, cost of bread is going to go up. A lot of these other things are going to go up. So you always want to know what your margins are and how you can do price adjustment. That's a different topic, but this is how I sort of look at it. I'll have Amadeo and Mohammed. I'll send this deck to them immediately after the call, so you can go and look at it. I'll try and also maybe upload it somewhere that is central for other people. Yeah. So I'm gonna open it up to Q&A. I don't know Amadeo and Mohammed how they want to run this, but I know I sort of went a bit deep, and I also want to hear your voices. I know one person here. I know Daisy from one of our other startups that she worked at. So yeah, I want to get some questions. I saw some comments. Yeah, I'm looking forward to engaging with you.
So this is great, Kenneth. Thank you so much. So audience, please unmute yourself, address your questions. This is a great chance, I think. And of course, you can also use the chat function to address your questions. Kenneth, before someone jumps in, thank you so much. It was a wonderful walkthrough, and I'm very happy that you took the product and pricing topics on a very venture-built setup. So this was very, very helpful. I think you touched on the fundamentals of building a venture, actually. And so thank you so much for it. I have one question, because the time was a little bit short. I feel like this is a topic that could expand for more and more. And I'm quite sure that people will have to digest it and will have come up with questions also after it, like sleeping a night over it. And then it was like, okay, I would love to know and hear your thoughts about this. Is it possible to reach out to you? So can we reach out to you somehow?
Yes, we can organize that. I know some people have questions. I know people have
That's
questions.
Perfect. Yes. And
now I know someone.
See already.
Yes.
I see Lydia and Daisy already. So please, the floor is yours.
Daisy, do you want to go first?
Lydia, go first.
Well, thank you for that really cool presentation. That was really, really, really good. I actually have a specific question, because when you were talking about margin, I was really surprised about the 10%, because what I learned here in Germany, we are talking about different margins, or at least at the fashion startups and the other companies that I worked at, it was more like 25, 30%. And so I'm very surprised about the 10%. Does that even help me to get my business going, or where do you get the 10% from?
I'll be very honest with you. I actually Googled, right? Like, what is a fair margin? And I can tell you for sure, like, for instance, the venture company I'm working at, okay, I'll answer your question. Where did I get the number? I Googled it, and to get like, what is the estimate of percentages and how they are ranked. So anything that's below 10% is considered in the red zone. It's really bad. 10% is like the acceptable average for any business. This is not venture backed. Remember what I said. Not every business is aiming to be $100 million business in 10 years. So you can have your restaurant that has 10% margin and low cost. So that works for you. But then as you get going, like 20% and above is where now things get interesting, and that is now considered good and healthy. So at 20% is considered healthy, and as you go on, you now get the good models. The best companies are companies like Visa and MasterCard that have like 70% margin with very few, or a company like Facebook that has those type of margins with small headcount that is relative to how much margin or money they are making. So that's where you want to play. I'll give you an example. I think there's a book by Peter Thiel. It's called 0 to 1, where they compare airline industry. They compare an airline and Google. So in terms of the revenue of airlines and Google, they are exactly the same, like the number of volume. But for airline, the cost of running an airline and paying pilots and doing all those things and all the fees that they pay versus running a technology company, the revenues are at the top, there's trillions of dollars, but then you find that, for the tech company, they keep more versus these other ones that actually don't keep more. That's why the gross percentage is key. So you find that airlines actually run on very thin margins as compared to other businesses, but it's still considered fair and okay, right? Depending on which line of business you are and the type of financing that you are. So I think for your question, if I'm looking at margins, I'm looking at what type of business am I in? What type of model am I going for? Am I just an SME? Am I just starting my own restaurant? I'm not planning to franchise. That's what I'll really focus on. And when you focus on that, then you know what works for you, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Daisy, you might want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
I think it also has been captured in the presentation, but I wanted to find out, sometimes how do you react to one of your competitors offering a very low price? You know, sometimes you have to calculate your product, how much it costs to produce it, but now you face the biggest competitors who offer their products at a very, very low rate. So
Okay.
how do you go about, trying to, offer a quality product for your customers at a slightly higher rate, but you have to face your competitors who are producing selling the product to your same customer base at a very low rate?
I think there's a few factors here to play, but one person really crystallized it well. I think it's Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon. He says that I don't focus on competitors, I focus on the customer and the value that I'm offering them, right? Now, it looks very, how do you put it? Very antithesis, because like, hey, this guy is eating my market share. I need to do something about it, right? But what he was trying to really communicate is that if he tries to really react a lot to the customer, you don't know. Basically, you'll be implementing a strategy where you're always playing catch up and not more you're always catching up with what your competitor is doing, and you don't know what their thesis is. A good example will be what is this company that's really pumped a lot of money? Opay. So when Opay went into Nigeria, right, man, they had like $50 million. They came into Nigeria. They tried, like, they were experimenting like really, really big. They had big budgets. They're able to really enter into the market and grow really quickly at a really high pace and get a lot of money, right? And get a lot of the market share. And there were other existing people, right? Like Gokada and other that were operating in Nigeria, in Lagos specifically. And they couldn't match up because, okay, these guys are venture back, they're coming with a lot of steam, right? And really growing quickly and getting my customer. So what they did is that you'll find like the Gokadas will cover niche and say, okay, our model is focused on safety, and that's where now you like, if you try and compete dollar to dollar with Opay, you're never gonna, you don't want the competition to be on price, never. And you also don't want, because it means then you have to go and raise $50 million to now keep up with them. So what you do is that you really focus on your top customers and you make sure you retain them. You can even increase the rate, and you have what they call market differentiation. So it's like this, right? Think of it this way. We have Apple, we have Samsung, we have Tecno. All those prices of phones are different. Like they still have a phone camera and all that. There's a reason why we always save our money and buy the latest iPhone, even if it's $1,000. They've just known that we are loyal, even if they add the price to $1,000, which is ridiculous, to be honest, in my opinion. But then for Android and all these guys and Samsung, they had like the fair point of a business. But still, you'll end up seeing that the way a good example is like Apple, Samsung, Google now who's playing in that field. You'll see that the way they're playing with hardware and the technos of the world is, it's more about capturing your market and selling the product to the customer that relates to you based on purchasing power, pride, what they want, the camera, the quality. So what you find is that any product you ever build, you'll always have your customers. And if you always remember, what's the one consistent thing I've talked about, the strategy, focus on your customer, but don't just focus on the customer and the problem. Focus on the value that you offer to them. So the magnitude of value, and remember, it's all about perception. If I think that Daisy's product makes me feel good, I don't care how much I pay, I will be going back there, right? And that's, if you really assess deeply, you'll even look at your consumer habits as an individual and you'll see, why do I go to this place and they're more costly to this? You'll start seeing some patterns. One pattern to really observe, or the great Abraham Maslow had this thing called the Maslow hierarchy of needs. And what you want to really understand is like, with regards to the theory of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, where are my customers playing at? So if I'm really going for SMEs, or if I'm going for bottom of the pyramid, I cannot go with a bougie product to them. Cost is always going to be a thing. But if I'm actually going to the, let's say, the top niche market, selling a product low is actually going to turn them off, because they have a perception cheap is low, is Chinese, is low quality. So cheap doesn't always mean that being low on price or playing on price doesn't really mean that customers are going to come. There's even a high likelihood that the more expensive your product is, the more the perception is that, hey, I'm still going to purchase. This is quality. I'll recommend a book by Cialdini. It's called Influence. I'll write it on the chat. He's a professor, behavior economist, I think in the 1980s, very popular. But his principles on the way the consumer thinks about price is quite interesting. And one example that I remember well from the book was, this lady was selling a gemstone for, let's say, for the instance, $2.5 in a shop. So he gave this lady, sell these gemstones at 2.5. So everyone will come at the shop, they won't buy. No one will buy. So everyone will buy other things, but not that gemstone. So what that person did, they went and tripled the price and then sold it at 7.5. So it was 3x. Those products, they started getting sold out, because now people are like, what's this 7.5? So because when you come into a jewelry store, you're like, the cheapest, why is that person coming to the jewelry store? Oh, they're coming to buy something precious to share with someone. And they want to have the perceived value. If I buy it cheap, the perceived value is that I'm not really, I need to invest a bit in giving the person, it's precious. That's why it's precious. That's why you have diamond ring, right? And these are the rings. And you find the diamond rings maybe will be selling more because of this. So the psychology of the person or the product in this particular example was wanted something that is precious, and whenever they see something costing lower, they put their perception that that is of lower value, which is true. If you're paying cheaper for something, then the perceived value is low, because at the end of the day, what makes price go up? Remember, there's the economics of supply and demand. So if the perceived value of this thing and the demand for it is so high, it is why the ticket goes up. I heard someone is in Germany. If I lived in France for a while and I used the TGV, there are specific times. If you go and book the train from Marseille to France, to Paris, it will be 500 euros. And I'm wondering why, but because that's when everyone wants to book that ticket. But if you book the ticket at another time, that it can go as low as 40 euros, right? Because everyone wants that thing, because it's more about the perceived value of that, right? And the airlines really play around with that price type of thing. Yeah, I hope I answered your question, Daisy.
Yes, thank you so much, Ken.
Yeah. I think
thank you so
much. Maybe
Yeah.
and then we can close.
Yes. So if there are no questions for the moment, then Kenneth, yeah?
Sorry, I had one more question, if that's okay.
Please.
Ask the question.
Yeah. Okay, good. Because when you were talking about the product strategy, when looking at the basically at the plan that you laid out, what I really liked about it was that basically you are keeping your eyes on the next reachable targets.
Yes.
And this is not how I've been doing things so far, because I've always been road mapping the entire road. And I'm wondering if that's something that you don't do or don't recommend, or is it something like, do you roadmap the entire way to the vision? Because there's a gap right now, right? From the target, from the next targets to the vision. And I'm wondering how you bridge that gap.
Yeah, so this is, I didn't share these slides. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
So the road mapping is what we call waterfall. So you like scope out everything and you think about it this way, and that's what is there. That's one school of thought. Next school of thought is the agile one, which I'm using, right? But at the end of the day, what I ended up finding is that the reality is that the mix of both, right? So what I do basically is, okay, this is the honest thing. I honestly don't know. Like, I can have a 5-year plan, but tomorrow I can, God forbid, crash and I'm not in existence, right? So I don't know what's going to happen or what's going to come up. And my theory, this is Ken's theory, please. This is how I look at life, product, lots of things. I only map out my vision for 10 years and I say, this is where I want to be. So I have like a 10-year vision or outlook of where I want to be, but I'm very scrappy. I don't write how that is going to be, right? I don't write it. I say, in 10 years, this is where I will want to be. And I put it there. And then I go back and say, okay, for me to get there, what are the things that I need to do? So that, remember the target that we posted? So now targets, I will have them in 12 month, 24 month, 18 month, 6 month burst, both for my life, personal life, both for my career or the product I'm working on, everything. So what that does for me is that it gives me room to absorb and be real and pragmatic with my strategy. Because what happens is, and I think a lot of people can tell you, especially you go to some systems, for some type of problem, especially right now, if you're building a new product or idea, you really don't know. And I can give you an example. My last startup that I started, Blackford, we had seen an opportunity with Internet of Things, right? So basically we had seen the biggest challenge with Internet of Things was connectivity. So we were like, okay, the reason why Internet of Things is not taking off, not just in the world, but also in Africa, was the cost of the solutions was high. And why is the cost of the solutions high? It's because connectivity and the approach of the battery. So if you're powering the thing via either batteries or power, and then for connectivity, you also have to either put a GSM card or say you have cellular approach, or you put a Wi-Fi module. You still have to power those devices. So if you put many sensors, the electricity bill shoots up. So what we were seeing was that the proof of concepts, all this IoT stuff, everyone will talk about IoT in the conference, the CEO comes, but they will only get to proof of concept stage, but they will never be rolled out in the organization. And the reason was because of that cost. So what happened is that the industry innovated a new approach, which we had seen, and it had been rolled out in Kenya. So now I was going and said, okay, now we see the opportunity. Now we need to map this solution into a problem. So I didn't know which industry I need to go to, but I knew that my solution can apply somewhere. So immediately, me and my co-founder were like, okay, let's prove the tech works. So we proved that works. First month, we built a prototype, did this, we proved. So the second month was like, okay, so let's look at Africa. Which is the place that needs sensors the most? Or like agriculture. Yeah, okay. That's where we're seeing the McKinsey. Everyone is talking about agriculture. Okay, so fine. Okay, let's go there. Then we say, okay, in agriculture, who is the person that's most likely to use IoT? Everyone. I'm sure if I ask everyone here, they'll think about a greenhouse farm, flowers, and putting a sensor in the greenhouse. I'm sure most people, like, that was my imagination. So what we did is that we quickly ran to Kenya produces 40% of flowers are consumed in the UK, right? So it's a very big global market. So we rush to Naivasha, where we have all those flower farms, and we go there with our solution, and we end up learning that, in fact, yes, they do need sensors, but the sensors are not even for the greenhouse; they are for the trucks. Basically, you want sensors and to monitor and make sure that the flower the conditions are consistent from when they are put in the truck to when they arrive in the airport, and the refrigeration for that. That's the riskiest part of the model. I'm like, oh, how would I have known that? So imagine I had built a plan, and then guess what? We go and do all that, and then we notice now we are like, okay, now we have a solution. We go back to them, and they're like, we evaluate the market, we see it doesn't work. Like we can't build a business based on flower farm. It's too niche. So what do? We start talking with other people. We jump into poultry. We think we've aced it with poultry. Only we've gotten poultry farmers. This is in a span of like weeks. We've gotten to poultry farmers. We've gotten like 5 poultry farmers who actually have like 50,000 chicken. We're seeing how the solution. Now we get to the cost part. We then go and give them the cost, and they're like, my margins are so thin, so I don't think this solution is gonna work. And no one could buy that solution. And even when we had lowered it. So here, why am I sharing this example? I'm sharing this example because what I learned was that, and I've validated this even in my life, is, and it's been the approach I've used, is that you cannot really ever know for sure, like in 12 months, like how that thing is going to play out unless you have the knowledge. So what you do is what you can know, or what you can state, or what you can be very assertive about is where you want to be. And so what you can do is now go back and say, this is what I know, and I'll do these 3 things. So the plan that you have is more molded towards the initiative or the experiments or the milestones that you want to accomplish in a 3-month span. And then you keep building upon that towards that big vision that you want to work on. And that's normally the more realistic way you can estimate or bring along partners in a way that is pragmatic and realistic to them. Because when you put the plan and you say, in 12 months, I will achieve this revenue, what the investors will ask. So I'll tell you for something I've learned in VC. No investor cares about your 5-year forecast. No, they don't care about it. In fact, they'll invest in you if you go and tell them, what I'm sure about is only this next 6 months. Rather than going and tell them, oh, in 5 years, we're going to have this. Because then if you share that, they'll ask you, so what are you doing? Like, what was your criteria of getting there, right? How do you know that this market, look, I'll give you another last example. COVID. In my model, when I was doing my startup, I had never planned for COVID. And when COVID hit, I had $500,000 that I had gotten from investors. I knew the milestones that I wanted to achieve. COVID happened. I actually went and returned the money to my investors and said, look, I've done all my risk assessment. The market has shrunk, and there are either two things. Either I return all your money and we bootstrap this company, or we shelve it for now and see how things happen. Or if we really believe this is going to work, let's put in $2 million to give us 24 months runway, because that's how much we need to keep experimenting and doing what we do, because we see an opportunity here. Now, unfortunately, none of the funds at that time were so much convinced that this was something to explore with our theory. So what I said, let me bear myself and go and get a job and do something else. But we had validated this. But then, look, who would have estimated, or in my plan, I had not seen COVID. And so if I had put a 3-year plan and gone and fundraised and done all that, I would have not been able to plan. So that's the type of reason or ideology that I use in terms of this moving target. So you can never really know, because there's so much of unknown and variables. And so what you want to do is put it in a way that you're able to model where you want to be in 5 years as a vision, or 10 years. That doesn't change so much. But then you focus on these moving targets and challenges. And then your thesis or your hypothesis, if you're venture backed, that is what you're going to sell to your partners. If you're even working with institutional investors or the EU government or grants, it's easy for them to really believe, okay, in 6 months, this is what we will achieve. So that's the thinking, the theory, and why I do that type of strategy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely wonderful. Hearing your thoughts, sharing with you your own methodology to product strategy and pricing. Thank you so much. Thank you also for the extra time, Kenneth. Really, this is much appreciated. And so let me stop recording. We will make sure that everyone will get your slides. And since you're also on our Slack channel, I encourage everyone to reach out to Kenneth directly in case you have questions, thoughts, and ideas. I'm sure you're available. And again, thank you so much. This was really wonderful.